second-round pick to win MVP. 40 names were called before him. I love a good underdog story. He trails only Wilt Chamberlain for the most assists per game by a center. Only Russell Westbrook led his team in more points, rebounds, and assists per game, and that was 4 years ago. The Joker flattered, but he's focused on evening the series with the Suns, where they were beat down in Game 1. Game 2 tonight in Phoenix. Perk, who is more important to Game 2, the Joker or DeAndre Ayton?
It's DeAndre Ayton. And look, we all know that Jokic is the MVP and he's a superstar, and I get all that. He's a special talent. But DeAndre Ayton has came to light, and he's found his groove. And he's not afraid of big Jokic, okay? He's dominating him on both ends of the floor, especially in Game 1. He dominated him. He dominated him where he held Jokic to 10 to 23 from the field, only 22 points. And on the other end, he went at him. He had 20 and 10 himself. And when I'm looking at DeAndre Ayton, he's playing with a certain type of tenacity. He's playing with a certain type of edge. And you know where that edge comes from? It comes from CP3. It comes from Jay Crowder putting that key in his back. And by the way, let me give credit to one of the assistant coaches that is sitting on alongside Monty Williams, Coach Mark Bryant. MB is what we call him. One of the most underrated coaches in the game today that takes a lot of time with DeAndre Ayton, putting that dog in him, developing his skill set. So DeAndre Ayton is the most important tonight, because if he dominates like he did in Game 1, the Suns will win in great fashion again, like in Game 2, like they did in Game 1.
Most important players, obviously, Jokic. I agree with you about Ayton's excellent play. And by the way, he was good against AD. And, you know, it's ironic that coming into these playoffs, it's like, well, the Suns one issue.
We're not talking about AD.
We're
not talking about AD.
Right, I'm talking about AD. Don't worry about it. You had your chance. Now you just got to sit there and figure out how you're going to lose another argument to me. Look, the bottom line is Ayton was green, right? Too green to deal with AD. Did a good job. Too green to deal with Jokic. Did a good job. Matter of fact, what's he going to do about Jokic's passing? Well, Jokic looked tired in the second half and actually was not as effective a passer. I tip my hat to DeAndre Ayton, who you credit for dominating Jokic, who wound up with 20 points and Jokic wound up with 22 points, 23 points, whatever it was. Right, that's dominating Jokic. You come away with the same numbers as Jokic, you dominated him. No, he played better than we anticipated, and Jokic played worse than we anticipated, largely because of Ayton. Ayton had a good game. That does not make him the most important player in the series. Andre Iguodala was not the most important player in the series against the Cavs when he won Finals MVP. LeBron James was. Andre Iguodala's the point of Iguodala's play was to try to limit LeBron James as much as possible. You know why? Because LeBron James was the most important player, and Jokic is the most important player here. He was the MVP of the regular series. He has, so far up till right now, been the best player in every series he's played in. He will likely be the best player in this series. If you want to say DeAndre Ayton's job is to make sure Jokic is not the best player in this series, and therefore he's important, fine. But his importance is linked to the fact that he is going up against the most important player in the series. And by the way, I don't expect Jokic to be an ineffective passer for the rest of this series either, Perk.
Why not? I mean, listen, what we saw against the Denver Nuggets against the Portland Trail Blazers, let me remind you, okay? The Portland Trail Blazers had the worst defense in the entire league. This is a new ball game right here. And when I talk about Ayton and I talk about him dominating the matchup, and you bring up points talking about, oh, Jokic had 23 and Ayton had 20. How did he get dominated? Well, I'm going to tell you, Max, because Jokic had 22 points on 23 shots. Ayton had 20 points on 13 shots. That means he was more efficient. And you know what else is going on? Now, you know why Jokic looked tired? Because he's involved in pick and rolls. Because he has to now be worried and guard DeAndre Ayton, because they're featuring him in the offense. It's a big difference. This is why I say Ayton is more important, because now Jokic can't relax on the defensive end. He got to be held accountable along with carrying the load offensively. Of course he's going to look tired, Max. That's why DeAndre Ayton has to continue to play with that tenacity and the energy that he played with in Game 1.
DeAndre Ayton was the number 1 overall pick in a draft with Luka and Trey, and you can't say he's a bust. No way. Like, he's a good player who's getting better, And the reason I bring up AD is because the matchups for him are AD and then Jokic, and you're expecting but instead, no, it's for the other guy. I'm not discounting him. What I'm saying is you're not going to stop Jokic all series. Jokic has too many ways to beat you, even if he is fatigued at times because he's got to play defense on a guy who can score. He's being defended by an athletic young guy who is motivated by Chris Paul. All that's true, but you're not going to stop over the course of a series a guy who can pass as well as anyone who's ever played the position, and most who haven't in the history of basketball, from a guy who's a down low, who can score, who can shoot the three, who's always looking for his teammates. And by the way, yes, at home you're going to have an advantage, but they're going to have the same advantage at Denver. Jokic is the MVP for a reason. He's the best player in the series. He's the most important. And the entire game plan for Phoenix has to be, what are we going to do about him? By the way, the more help he gets, the better. Porter Jr. going to play? That's good. Barton may be coming back? That's good because they're thinned out in the backcourt. Jokic is the most important player in the series.
All right.
Well, Max, what you fail to realize is, and I'm going to repeat this to you again, this is a different ball club, okay? This is not Portland where you could get backdoor cuts and get easy baskets and they're playing pickup ball. This is the Phoenix Suns that are locked in, that plays boxes and elbows, that know how to throw different defensive coverages at you. Did you see in game one real quick, Molly? Max, did you see in game one when Jokic started a cut was there, he tried to make a cross-court pass and Mikal Bridges was right there to intercept it? That's the difference. This Phoenix Suns is a detail type team.
Yep.
Yeah, they're really good.
Jokic shot 6 for 15 when guarded by DeAndre Ayton in game one. We will leave it there, fellas.
Back to Club ATL, okay? Lemon pepper Lou wings are going to be served all throughout the arena. That crowd is going to be rocking. And look, I heard Stephen A. yesterday talking about how the Suns arena is electrifying, how the fans are involved, and how they're the sixth man. Well, guess what? I was involved in a series where we had to play the Atlanta Hawks back in 2008 when we won the championship. When I won the championship with the Boston Celtics, and we could not win a game in there. Okay, we could not win a game in there. By the way, Molly, I think the last 12 games, including the postseason of this season, the Hawks are 12-0, I believe. It's a hard environment to play in. Role players are going to elevate their game at home. Trae Young is going to play better at home. I have the Hawks winning this series in 6.
Yeah, no, and I got to take your word for it because I see Memphis is still lighting the world on fire. Oh, wait a minute. That didn't work out. What else? Who else have you had? I'm waiting for you to get one right. Look, the Hawks are very good. I'm not disputing what you're saying about why you're picking them. But I'll tell you this. The Sixers have the best record in the conference for a reason, because they were the best team this year, especially with Embiid healthy. Now I want to get to Embiid. The losing that first game, which I put on Doc because he went to that all-bench unit and he played them all together, no starters, and they got killed. Stephen A. tried to tell me, well, they're not very deep compared to the Hawks, and the Hawks played a fast pace, etc., but the all-bench unit got killed. And to me, that wasted 39 points by a dude playing on a torn meniscus. You can't waste that. On a guy playing on a torn meniscus, 280 pounds, you're going to waste 39 points? But it turns out the next night he drops 40. No, you're not. This is just what Embiid does. At a certain point, we just got to realize this is who he is. That's why, had he played in more games, because he had health issues to worry about, had he played in more games, he'd have been the MVP. Because let's be clear, Jokic is the MVP because Embiid, and he is the MVP. Jokic is the MVP. But that's because Embiid missed games. If Embiid played a full season, he'd have been the MVP. Oh, he would have been the MVP. It was that, but he was the best player in the league from the time the season started until the end. The only dude who played better, it was James Harden when Harden got to the Nets, but he missed too many games. So number one is Embiid is not going to stop scoring 39 and 40 points. You can't stop him from doing that. He's a monster. Number two, Doc went away from the all-bench unit. Now how many minutes the all-bench unit played last night? 0. He always had at least one starter in the game. And number three, Shake Milton. Shake Milton, who went from like a Sixers hero to unplayable. Doc stayed believing in him. Shake stayed ready. And when it mattered, this dude came out and could not miss. The Sixers have the best player in this series. They are a great defensive team. They have a championship coach, and they're going to win the series.
See, Max, this is why you need your basketball court revoked and taken away from you. And this is why I know that you wasn't watching the game last night. If you were watching the game last night, the Hawks kept making runs. The Philadelphia would go up by double figures. All of a sudden, the Hawks will make a run and bring it into 4. I mean, the arena was so quiet in there last night. Right before the end of the third quarter, when Shake Milton hit that buzzer beater at the end of the third, right?
Yep.
Then the fans erupted, okay? And then all of a sudden, the role players started playing better. Shake Milton, the crowd brought the best out of the role players. The Dwight Howard started being a beast on the glass. All of a sudden, you looked up, and guess what? In the first 5 minutes, the score in the fourth quarter was 16-4. Due to what your bitch had brought to the table. So I'm watching the game last night, and it goes back to my point of when I keep giving you free game, when I should be sending you my cash app and charging you, when I be telling you role players step up at home because fans help role players elevate their games. And that's what happened
The
last
best players
night with
determine the
76ers.
series, in fact.
Yeah.
Like you put the emphasis on role players, but the best players determine the series. That's why all the championships are won by Magic and Bird and Kareem and Jordan and LeBron. That's why those guys got all the championships.
All right,
and guess who the best player in the series is? Joel Embiid. By far.
Speaking of role players,
that's
Philly's
right.
bench
Yeah,
was scoreless in the first half. They put up 26 in the second. I want to ask you this, though,
Preach,
Kendrick.
Molly.
It's all fun talking about this series, fun and games until you meet up with the Nets. Now, I know Harden's banged up. Can either of these teams even compete with them?
No, not the way that Kevin Durant is playing right now. And look, I was the guy that picked the Bucks to win in 7. I was wrong. I let the world fool me. I let people like Max tell me how great of a player Giannis was and how much PER mattered instead of me actually watching the damn game myself and seeing that Giannis really just don't have the skill set to get them over the hump. But that's another story. But if I'm looking at this Philadelphia 76ers team and Atlanta Hawks team, I love the way that both of them compete. Both of them have superstars. But Kevin Durant right now is the best player on the damn planet. And he has a certified Robin that's playing off the charts right now in Kyrie Irving. And right now, I don't see no team in the Eastern Conference stopping this Brooklyn Nets team, even without James Harden.
First of all, the nerve of you. You actually tried to turn that around and say people like Max Kellerman talked me into Giannis? Wasn't it? Because we don't just do this on this show, Molly. We do this on the Max Kellerman show on ESPN Radio, 2 p.m. Eastern, Perk and me. Wasn't it I who was telling you that if the Nets are healthy, they're going, because you were saying a healthy Nets team was going to lose to the Bucks. I was telling you if the Nets were healthy, not only would they win, not a team in the NBA, including the Lakers, when healthy, would take them 7 games. No one was going to take them 7. Look what just happened without James Harden. It turns out Blake Griffin can still dunk. Not only dunk, but put a dude like Giannis on a poster. It turns out Blake can still get a double-double as a third or fourth option. KD is playing like KD, like an MVP. Kyrie is playing out of his mind. Blake looks like Blake Griffin again. Joe Harris still one of the best shooters in the league. I mean, if they had James Harden, it would compete with the Nets like any team ever. Who's going to compete with them?
Max, you know what? It's hard for me to take anything that you're saying right now seriously, okay? Because you are the true definition of a trader. You traded your back on the New York Knicks. Okay, last year you were preaching when you and I were on First Take talking about MVP candidates, right? And I was telling you LeBron should win it. And you was on there preaching about how good of a player Giannis is, and he has a PER of Wilt Chamberlain and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and he's so valuable to the team. You remember that, Max Kellerman? And
I
by
do.
the way, you talking about the Brooklyn Nets. You're talking about the Brooklyn Nets right now, but you were the same one that said the Brooklyn Nets go as far as James Harden goes, right?
Yeah.
Wasn't James Harden the most valuable player on this team?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wasn't he the best player
Yeah,
in your
that's
eyes?
before I knew Blake
But
Griffin
you were
was still
wrong
Blake
about
Griffin.
that.
Blake Griffin's still Blake Griffin, apparently.
But you was wrong about that. And so what I'm saying is, I'm not talking about the Giannis situation and me picking the Bucks right now is what you're saying right now, because you did pick the Nets. I'm talking about over the past 2 years.
Let's do it. Hold up. I'm going to answer every single one of those. I'm going to answer every single one of those. The MVP in NBA is a stupid award. The fact that they give it out in the regular season, I'm on the record consistently as saying it's idiotic. There's no such thing as a regular season. Like, who cares about the regular season when 2/3 of the teams are still playing when the regular season's over? And an MVP will never come from a non-playoff team, or at least play-in team now, okay? So I hate the award to begin with, and I don't care about it until the final. However, when the question on this show is who is the regular season MVP, you can't not give it to Giannis 2 years ago. Of course he was the regular season, which I don't even like, MVP, okay? That doesn't mean I'm picking them to win. That's a totally different thing. Now, if the award was the way it should be and you waited till the end of the season to give it out, then of course it's LeBron. That's just not the way they do it. That's just not the way they do it. So when we talk about the playoffs, and you're trying to tell me this Milwaukee Bucks team, because they have the right pieces, whatever, are going to compete with the Nets with KD, James Harden,